If you watched TV in the 80s or 90s, then I don't even need to tell you who I'm talking about. The music has done it for me. Michael Parkinson's familiar face and distinctive voice were iconic of quality talk show television, with his uncanny knack for getting famous and interesting people to open up to him and go beyond their public facade in his interviews that felt more like deep and meaningful conversations with close friends than they did TV filmed in front of a live studio audience. It's not hyperbole to say that he's one of the most trusted people on television. If he says something, you know that there's no spin or exaggeration, just genuine honesty. So, what do you do when he agrees to pranking the entire country on Halloween night? Okay, it's a little unfair to phrase it that way, but on Halloween night in 1992, Michael Parkinson hosted a live television event called Ghostwatch, in which a small team of scientists, skeptics, and celebrities spent the night investigating a haunted house, while Parky and his guests in the studio evaluated the evidence and answered people phoning in to tell their stories on live TV. The twist? The entire program was pre-scripted and filmed in advance, including all of the supposedly real footage of the haunting, and, of course, all of the terrifying events that began happening in the house and studio as the supernatural spiraled out of control, with a poltergeist kidnapping a BBC News reporter, possessing Michael Parkinson as the studio lost power and the production crew fled, causing mass hauntings all across the country in houses that had been viewing the programme. Except, of course, it was all fake, and the only thing it caused across the country was mass hysteria. Even though it was broadcast under the BBC's drama titles, and included a statement at the beginning that it was a fictional movie, anybody who tuned in more than a few minutes late had no way of knowing that. And it was written and acted well enough to be very convincing. There was one sobering report of a teenage boy who committed suicide rather than face the poltergeist that he assumed was about to come for him and his family, as well as numerous reports of the elderly passing out with fright and children being traumatised from sleeping for days afterwards. The BBC was forced to issue a public apology and has never rebroadcast Ghostwatch without numerous messages. It's available on DVD, and I highly recommend it. Even knowing it's all fake, it still holds up brilliantly, with fan websites discovering new sightings of the ghost of the movie even to this day. It was called the most terrifying hour of British television ever broadcast, a title it arguably lives up to. Do yourself a favour one Halloween night, turn down the lights, sit on the floor in front of the TV, put on Ghostwatch, and pretend it's 1992. Ghostwatch is often overlooked when people discuss found footage movies, but I think that it's an important landmark to remember. Never before had such a huge number of people been simultaneously duped into believing that the movie they were watching was real, both the live and archival footage. The closest example I can think of is the Orson Welles radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds. And even then, that story was mostly fabricated by the radio station for sensationalism. There aren't any reliable sources from the time to indicate that anybody thought it was real. 10 years after Ghostwatch, Stephen Volk, the film's writer, wrote a short story to serve as a sequel. You can read it online, and while it's never going to live up to the telemovie, it's still pretty good. It tries to maintain the narrative that the BBC covered everything up by falsely claiming it was fiction, but I think that stretches the disbelief too far than if he just ignored all of that, especially since it clearly doesn't gel with the story's otherwise great ending. Winding the clock back even further, there's still more, because found footage horror already existed before the 90s. The 80s was the decade that horror fans fell in love with slasher flicks. New levels of psychological horror and gore with franchises built around recognisable villains that people grew to perversely love. As such, horror was increasingly built on cinematic spectacle, and found footage, with its building blocks firmly in realism, didn't find a strong foothold in the decade. The 70s, on the other hand, need their own video. So tune in next time, where we finally get to the start of all of this.